The second category in which you can include CSS rules refers to the layout, or how you position various elements on the page. We can categorize these elements into major and minor components. The minor ones, such as forms, buttons, navigation menus, are contained within major components, and I'll talk about them in the next lesson. The major components are called layout styles, and they represent the big chunks, the big blocks of information, such as header, a footer, or a sidebar. Now, normally, these major components only appear once in a page. Therefore, it's a good practice to use IDs. So let's have a look at our HTML here, just some basic markup. We have a header with an ID of main header, and then a div, main content, an aside element with an ID of sidebar, and a footer. Also, in the CSS, we have some basic styling for these. Now, consider the following situation. You have a website with a very simple structure, pretty much like we have here, but you need it to display differently if the user chooses a fixed layout instead of fluid. Well, you can actually declare this preference as a layout style and combine it with the existing ones. So here's an example. If I put a class here that's called lFixed, and notice the notation I used for this fixed class is actually part of a recommended naming convention. In this case, the L- prefix stands for layout. And it's a great way to easily identify the purpose of a specific style. So I do this, and then back in our CSS, I can target that fixed style. So I'm going to say something like lFixed. Let's target the L container, and we can specify a fixed width like 800 pixels and also a margin of 0 and auto, just to center that content. Again, lFixed will target the main content this time, and instead of a fluid width, we're going to set it width 600 pixels. And we'll do pretty much the same with the sidebar. We're going to set its width to 200 pixels. So just by doing that, we transformed our fluid layout to a fixed layout, just by adding this class. Now let's have a look at the sidebar. There's a list element right here, which holds all the widgets, and it's called L vertical list. Again, L stands for layout. And you might think that a name like L-widgets would be more appropriate, but the idea here is to create some general styles for this list so it can be reused. That's why it also has a class instead of an ID. I can take this list anytime I want and create an additional sidebar, for example, or use it in any other page that requires a similar vertical layout. And as you can see from the CSS, L-vertical list just specify a list style type, and it targets the direct descendants, the list items, and applies a margin bottom of 2ems. So I'm keeping things very, very simple because since this is a more general rule, we need to be able to reuse it, and that's what you should learn. Always try and make things easier for you in the long run. By creating the style, you make sure that if you're expanding the website, you won't have to redefine or completely change these styles. With that said, if you want a real-world example of these layout rules, go ahead and read the SMACSS book. Jonathan talks briefly about the Shopify website. That's about it for the layout rules. Coming up, I'll talk about modules.